Okay, so here we are in CSX Heavy Haul with a couple GP38s. I chose the GP38 as the next engine because I wanted to show an engine that has all 5 levers. In this one we have the independent brake, the automatic brake, the dynamic brake, the throttle, and the reverser. All separate 5 levers. Some engines combine them, some engines like these have the separate ones. And so to demonstrate the use of both devices at the same time, we go to this engine. So on this engine I have the reverser set to this lever. I have the throttle set to the right axis. I actually have all 3 brakes set to the left axis. You can pick which one you want to do, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment. And then I have on the Saitek, this one doesn't do anything, but I have the independent brake on the middle lever, and I have the automatic brake on the left lever. So every time you switch to a new engine or load the sim, you need to synchronize all the levers. Right now we see that the reverser is in the middle, throttle is off, dynamic is off. We see independent is all the way on, and the automatic is actually at initial reduction. One way to do that is to hit escape, move the lever through its full travel, and then put it where it matches in the sim. So I've just put the reverser in the middle to match the reverser in the middle. Throttle is already in position, so that's fine. The flap switch is what I use to pick which brake I control with the left. I'll explain that in a moment, but for now just understand that right now I'm controlling the left. The left axis is controlling the dynamic brake, and the dynamic brake is all the way back, so I'm going to pull this all the way back. The independent brake is all the way forward, so I'm going to push this one all the way forward, and the automatic brake is at initial reduction. So you see how the Saitek has this, what they call the reverser. It's not, don't confuse that with engine reverser. They call it reverser because it's actually an airplane thing. So it's a switch position. Down is to put the automatic brake completely off in release. Move it up one step and it puts it in the initial setting. So the the automatic brake in the sim is currently in what's called initial reduction, so I put this to match. So now all the levers are set to match. Let me go back to the sim, and the reverser, the throttle, the dynamic brake, the independent brake, and the automatic brake. But you see there's a problem there. See how it's jumping? And that's the reason why I said I use the left axis to do all 3 levers. So let me explain that. So we've got them all in sync, and it works. You just have to understand how not to get things out of sync. So, for example, this lever works fine for the independent brake. But if you move it too quickly, it didn't move it far enough. I pulled the lever through its full travel all the way to the bottom, but the independent brake is only at 53% because I moved too quickly. It didn't get all the key presses in required to actually move the lever the full travel. So you have to move the lever slowly, and as long as you move it slowly, everything's fine. If you do get it out of sync, like right now it's out of sync, the Saitek lever is all the way down, but the independent brake is at 56%. Well, I can do bail off. Bail off is to push this Saitek lever down into that switch position, and that's bail off. And that works pretty well. I'm happy with that, actually. It's a simple lever with the bail off, and the reverser position on the Saitek works excellent for bail off. With the automatic brake is a whole other story. So I pull it out of that switch position, it goes to service. Push it back in, it goes to release. I can't get it to initial reduction. I could, but it's all a compromise in how you program the lever. Because in train sim world, as I said, every control is done with a button push. So like on the throttle, looking at the throttle, A, D, D, D. But you have to press and hold that lever to get it to move far enough to reach your goal. If I just tap it, it may not make it. You have to tap and hold, tap and hold, tap and hold. Well, using the keys for the automatic brake, same thing. It won't get over the mark. Got to tap and hold, tap and hold. But when we get to service, now you can tap it a very small amount and it will move what I call a continuous region. It will only move as long as you press and hold. But then there's a point where it gets to full service and it won't go beyond that unless you tap and hold, and then it goes to suppression. It says handle off, but actually that's suppression, that's handle off, and there's emergency. So here's the problem with basic access to key mappers, and that is that I can make it press to have good resolution in this continuous region, but when I get up to handle off and emergency, see, it won't go past the position. And now the lever's all the way up and it wouldn't go past it. In order to make that work, I have to get the lever up there. See, they're out of sync. Let me get it all the way down. I have to get the lever up there and have it do a whole bunch of presses, but it, you know, it's a compromise. If I were to do a press long enough to make it go all the way to emergency, then in this zone it would jump like that far in one movement. In other words, I would move the lever that much and this lever would move that much. So it's compromise. It's very frustrating that it's this way, because it's the reason why doing a key access, an access to keyboard mapper with the simpler software with most controllers doesn't work. So actually I've stopped using the Saitek for most the time in Train Sim World, and instead I only use Thrustmaster. The reason is because the Thrustmaster, let me get it synchronized, push it all the way forward, pull it all the way back. Now they're synchronized. You only have to do that once when you first start with a new engine. So now I can go to initial reduction, service. I've got good resolution in the service region. But then I can go to suppression. Oh, I'm sorry. Full service, suppression, handle off, and emergency. And I have confidence to know that the lever will go to where I put it every time. And this is a lot of the effort that went into making the programming work in Target, because here it has to do short presses. Here it has to do a longer press. Here it has to do an even longer press, and the longest press of all is to get it into emergency. And so, like the Saitek software or other simpler software, doesn't have the ability to change the duration of the press depending on the zone of the lever. That's the big difference that Target allowed. So maybe that's kind of confusing. Apologies that it's technical, but if you tried to use an access to keyboard mapper, you probably stopped in frustration in the realization that because of the way Train Sim World does the key presses, long press, short, that it's just very difficult to use simpler software like with the Saitek or CH products or many of the other game controllers out there. You could do this with auto hotkeys. Auto hotkeys will support all different controllers, and then you could write a routine in auto hotkeys that would do exactly what I'm doing here with the Thrustmaster, but you could do it with all controllers. It would be more complicated to do that in auto hotkeys than it would be to do it with Target for a Warthog, and since I have a Warthog, I did it with Target on the Warthog. Alright, so let me pull the automatic brake all the way back. And I'm going to set it to initial reduction and show you how I can do all three brakes with one lever. So again, the flap switch selects the brake lever. All the way back selects the independent brake. The middle position selects the automatic brake. The forward position selects dynamic. You might ask, well, wait a moment, doesn't that mess up synchronization? No, it doesn't, because the Warthog remembers the position of the lever in the game. So right now, after you synchronize it. So right now, the independent brake is all the way back, the automatic is on initial reduction, and the dynamic is all the way back. So I'm going to synchronize all three of them. Put the flap switch in the back position, And you see right now it's not moving anything. And then you heard that chirp, and now it's moving it. So I'm going to pull it all the way back so it's synchronized. And now they're synchronized. Let me put the independent brake all the way forward. I'll show that again in case you missed it. I'll do it with the automatic brake. Flap switch is in the middle position. Middle position. I'm going to pull it back. It's not doing anything. Listen for the little tick. Now they're synchronized. Now it will move it. So let's put that back in initial reduction. Now I'm going to go to the dynamic brake. See, doesn't do anything because the dynamic brake is all the way back. So let me move it all the way back and listen for the tick. Now they're synchronized. And now it moves it. So maybe this is a little confusing, but let's say, here's a typical application. Let's say you're going down a hill and you have the dynamic brake set to 7 and you can't go any further because one step further and your overcurrent warning light goes on saying that you can't use any more dynamic braking. So your option is to switch to automatic. Sorry, actually automatic would be off. Your option is to switch from dynamic to automatic and just add initial reduction, slow down a few miles per hour, pull that back off, and then go back to dynamic brake. So let me do that slowly so you see what's happened. So dynamic brake is on 7. I switch to automatic. I pull the lever back. It's not doing anything. As soon as I hear the tick, now the automatic brake is being controlled. Pull the automatic brake back off. Switch to dynamic. Move it up till I hear the tick. And now I've got control of my dynamic again. Maybe that's not what you want to do, maybe it is. That's why I include the file for the Warthog and the files for the Saitek to do all of this so you can get all the levers at once. So here we are, flap switches all the way forward, I'm doing dynamic on this lever, and I can control the automatic brake with the red lever while keeping this as the dynamic. My preference is to use the tick, do what I'm going to do, and control all 3 brake levers with one real lever. Because normally, except for the scenario I've just described, normally you would only use one of these brake levers at a time anyway. And what about bailout? First, let's get them synced. I just moved to independent, I moved it all the way forward to match. You heard the tick. I'm going to pull it all the way back. Where's the bail off? There's the bail off. You pull the left lever up, pull it back, that's bail off, push it forward, and now we're back to release. So that's that engine.